Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay. This is a podcast to inspire, uplift, show forth the love of God, and help usher in the spiritual awakening. Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay. I'm your host, Jay Spillers, author and teacher. Today we're talking about what is the essence of spiritual awakening, because I throw out this term all the time. We're in the midst of a spiritual awakening. You hear it everywhere. And what's the key ingredient that the spiritual awakening is going to need? And I was thinking about this and it just sort of came to me because I want to be part of the spiritual awakening. And you probably want to be part of the spiritual awakening. But what's the ingredient that needs to be there? In a world that's alienated and isolated, in a world where the mental health industry is growing because everybody's depressed, everybody's stressed, everybody's anxious, what is the ingredient that's missing that's going to make the awakening possible? And I think the ingredient is this. The ingredient is connection. That's what's missing right now. We're all at each other's throats. We're all divided. We're all alienated. We lack any sense of purpose or meaning. We don't have fulfillment. We don't have an identity because we're not connected. And when you think about it for a minute, when people look nostalgically back, say to like the 1950s, and they look at it in an idealized way, what are they seeing? Well, they see a society where you have strong families, families that are together and intact. You see a society that has a strong faith component and faith community. You have a society where there's a sense of community and a connection to country. Now, a lot of the visions maybe of the 50s are, like I said, idealized. And maybe there's a lot of things we're not really looking at in terms of problems and whatnot that may have been in the 50s. But it had that ingredient of connection. That's what we're missing. Now, what if we could have a society and a world that was fundamentally connected? Maybe in some sense it would be reminiscent of the 50s, but more in an inclusive and egalitarian way. And maybe it would be at a deeper level. It wouldn't be necessarily quite as superficial as you might have found in the 50s, where everything on the surface looks intact, looks good, but maybe you dig a little deeper and wasn't quite as good as you thought. What if you could have what we had in the 50s, but profoundly better, profoundly experienced at a deeper level? And I think that's kind of where the spiritual awakening is going. You can look back nostalgically wherever you want, the 50s, what have you. But I think something even better and more profound is yet to come. Now, in the process, to get connections, we need to bring in these kind of things that we had before. There's got to be a healing in the family. There's got to be restoration because the family is the core unit of society. If the family is not intact, society suffers. Society is not intact. So there has to be a change there. And you can't have half of marriages ending in divorce. I mean, I just don't see how that could be possible for the spiritual awakening to really take root. There's going to have to be a core shift. And there's going to have to be a core shift in terms of how we, again, relate to each other. And we have to value the commitments that we make, and we have to experience transformation so that, one, we see the value in connecting to the other person, but then the other person sees the value in staying connected to us. So, yes, the family is absolutely important. We need faith and faith communities. We need to come together spiritually and form community. We need to be fundamentally connected spiritually. And today, this is going on in like 1,000 different directions, and that's totally fine. Some of it may be going on in more traditional Christian settings where you're having awakenings going on, Bible sales going on, people renewing their commitments to God through the Christian tradition. People will start going back to church. All of that's great. But there'll also be connections to faith and faith tradition in other ways. There'll be probably new connections. I mean, some people will probably start to connect spiritually through maybe what we might call more new age things, and that's totally fine. And some people will start to make new connections. Maybe they'll connect to Christianity and to more of a traditional expression of Christianity, but maybe in a context of a home church. Maybe there'll be a lot more churches, if you will, meeting in a more informal setting, in coffee houses, in parks. They'll be just as connected as churches in the past, maybe more connected, but it'll take a different form. And that's sort of what we have to be ready for when we have the rise of faith communities and the people restoring their faith. It's not going to look like the Great Awakening of the 1800s. It's not even necessarily going to look like a Billy Graham crusade in the 1960s. It's going to be a bit different. There may be some elements of the awakening that may get, what we're more used to seeing in terms of a traditional awakening. But there's going to be other expressions of it going on. There's going to be like thousands of expressions of it going on. And some people are going to be kind of like, oh, I sort of understand this one, but I don't understand this one over here. And this one over here is like really out there. And they're all going to be going on at the same time. And it's totally fine. So you're going to have traditional Christianity, New Age, more of an informal awakening going on. People talking about God's spirituality in the coffee house. I mean, there's going to be like a lot of different expressions of it. And there kind of is now, because you have like a lot of online interest in spirituality. And I don't think online is completely the answer because you need to have the in-person contact. But at least it's a gateway for people to start to explore faith and explore spirituality. So in that sense, it's good. Right now, I'm connecting to you online. So there's definitely a role for it. I just wouldn't necessarily say it's the end all be all. So we're going to have the expansion of the faith traditions and faith communities. and people seeking out greater spirituality. And then when you talk about country and community, there's got to be a belief in a sense of community and in a sense of country. And I think that's kind of going on now. You look about in the political arena and you see, not just in this country, but globally, a populist nationalist uprising in different nations where populist and nationalist candidates are coming to power. And I don't think it's going to be anything like, some fascist thing or whatever. It's nationalistic in the sense that they're pointing people towards a patriotism, really. It's more of a patriotism and a centered focus within the people. So it's not really a fascism in the sense of government controlling your lives and government controlling the economy and all of that. It's not really about that. It's more about a matter of seeing ourselves as a people and having an identity like we once did and having a patriotism in that sense for each other. And it seems almost paradoxical because once we start to appreciate who we are as a people within our communities, within our nation, we can then look over and appreciate other people and their cultures. But I think it has to first start with a appreciation for who we are as a people, who we are as a community and a country. And I think, that's kind of an important thing, America first. Now, I would say the political aspect of the spiritual awakening is a small aspect. It's not the main aspect of this spiritual awakening. And my hope is, with the recent election and MAGA, um, Donald Trump and whatnot, is yes, he's a very polarizing figure. Yes, he's not, ideally what anyone would want in that sense. I mean, the guy's not Mr. Rogers. We wish someone would come who was a political leader that was flowing with kindness and compassion and that was more like Mr. Rogers, more like a Mother Teresa. And we didn't get that. But somehow we kind of intuitively know, many of us do, that this is the one God sent for America. And there's others around the world. God is sending other people to different nations to lead those nations in sort of a appreciation for their people and a focus. But he's the one that's been sent to the United States. And there's wild prophecies all over the place that saw the rise of Donald Trump coming. And I don't like to get too political on this channel because that's really not our focus. But I'm just talking in a larger spiritual context of what's going on there. There was a priest in 1983 that saw the rise of Donald Trump and said that God was going to use him in a powerful way to help our nation. And this was 1983. A lot of people didn't know a whole lot about Donald Trump then. They knew he was kind of a young playboy, wealthy real estate person. Beyond that, they didn't really know too much about him. And a lot of this priest's friends were like, okay, well, this guy's kind of a playboy. He doesn't really fit the mold of what we would expect as God's man in that sense. But the priest was like, no, no, I saw this in my vision. God told me this. And there's been other prophecies that are similar to this. The attempted assassination of Trump, there's actually a pastor that saw the event and spoke about it 3 months before it happened, that there would be assassination attempt. It would come within a fraction of killing him, and that there would be a transformation in him and that he would help the people of God. And I actually do think that the assassination attempt did point Trump in um, a more spiritual path. It pointed him more towards God. And he actually told RFK Jr. this, that something happened to him on that day and that his focus is more towards God. Now, you know, he's still rough around the edges and he's probably still working through a lot of this stuff, you know. So, but I think something happened there. And it's just like that pastor said, God used that event to get his attention, and he's drifting in a more spiritual direction. And I don't know, maybe a couple years from now, as he starts to mature, he might be quite a bit different in his personality than he is now. I don't know. I can't say, you know. And I don't want to offend anybody, you know. It doesn't really matter to me who you voted for, Trump, Harris, third party. You didn't vote at all. That's fine. I'm just hoping that we can come together now. And my hope too is that he's putting together a very diverse cabinet. He's bringing in people like RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard. He's bringing in Elon Musk. So you've got people that are essentially Democrats, one guy that's, you know, builds electric cars. So it's not the traditional country club Republicans that are in here that have been in power forever, you know, the Bushes of the world. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and maybe if some of the stuff they want to get accomplished gets done, like if RFK Jr. curtails big pharma and curtails some of the excesses in the medical establishment and starts to improve food quality, maybe this could bring different factions within our country, right and left, center, libertarian, together in a way. Because a lot of people, whether you're right, left, center, libertarian, they see issues with things like big pharma. And so if he can do some profound um, reforming of those things, maybe it could bring us together. That's kind of my hope. You know, maybe if Trump is able to chart a different course with the world and be more peaceful, bringing into things like conflicts like Ukraine and maybe what's going on in Israel, this could sort of help unite us more as a people. He could go from the polarizing figure that he is now to maybe something that looks more like a Reagan or an Eisenhower. And, you know, we'll have to see what happens. It's kind of interesting when we talk about connections too. Think about all the social ills that we have. And this is why family is important. Because when you have stronger families, intact two-parent homes, you have less drug and alcohol addiction. You have less teen pregnancy. You have less crime. You have less poverty. So the connection there is very important. But like when you look at alcohol and drug addiction, and they could even see this in like during the Vietnam War, the biggest issue when it comes to drug and alcohol addiction, bigger than the addiction itself, the physical chemical addiction itself, is the issue of connection. And they could see this as early as the Vietnam War. Because a lot of times the Vietnam vets would come back, they were addicted to heroin. And yet the ones that had family connections that could reconnect in, their addictions just sort of fell along the wayside. They recovered quite fast, quite easily. And the ones that didn't have the connections would continue to struggle for quite some time. And that's really the issue. That's why I think things like when people find God and go to church, and when people go to AA, what is the thing they get there? They get a sense of connection, a connection with other people, and also to a certain extent a connection with God, both in AA and in church groups. So that's the issue with drugs and alcohol. Get connection. I think it's more important than the program itself. I mean, you could take the 12 steps of AA and yeah, to a certain extent they have value. But I'm serious is that the more important issue, probably than how good the program is, the 12 steps, is the connection that you make with the other people and with God. Because I mean, I've met people that have been successfully recovering and go to AA, and they all have the same thing. They love to go to the meetings. They love to connect with the people. They just eat that up. And that's what it is. They're getting a connection. That's the main thing. And the same thing with the people that find God, start going to church. They've got their connection. And let's look at another contentious issue. Look at the issue of abortion. And I have to be really careful here. I'm not trying to alienate or upset anybody, whether you're pro-life, pro-choice, on the fence, you're welcome here. We love you. But what is the issue with abortion? I mean, if you had an abortion or know someone who had an abortion, in an ideal world, is this what you probably would have wanted? I kind of doubt it. Now, people have a slew of reasons as to why, and excluding maybe like some of the medical issues, you have economic issues and you have social issues. I'm struggling financially. I'm not in a good position. I'm in college, whatever. And so they have an abortion. But there's people exactly in the same position as them that make a completely different choice that have the baby. And what's the difference? I think the difference in most cases is probably the connection. Think about it from like the girl's perspective, the woman's perspective. If the father is highly supportive and wants you to have the child, you're probably more likely to have the child than to not have the child, than if the father was very unsupportive and aloof, but not around at all. You're probably more likely to go in the abortion direction. Now, this isn't always determinative because you have sometimes the father really wants the kid and she has an abortion anyway, or the father's really aloof and she has the kid. But you see that it makes a difference in some cases. The family dynamic can make a difference too. If she feels like she's got a highly supportive family, that's going to make a difference whether she has an abortion or not. If she has a connection to the child itself, sort of creating the culture of life, that's going to make a difference. If she has a connection to faith, that's going to make a difference. And a lot of times, if she has strong connections beforehand, she may end up making different choices that keep her from experiencing an unintended pregnancy in the first place. So, just like we were saying about families. But if a girl finds herself or a woman finds herself in an unintended pregnancy and she's got connections to different people and to her faith and to different things like that and to the child, she's likely to have an abortion. So that's an important point. If you want to reduce abortion, whether you're pro-life or you're pro-choice and have some qualms with abortion or discomfort with it, beyond just creating a culture of life, which is important, you need to create a culture of connection, that's going to make all the difference in the world. A culture of connection. what's going to make the difference. And I know that this was a big issue during the election, is the issue of abortion. And I'm going to tell you a secret here. And this may upset some people, it may surprise some people. This may upset people who are pro-life, and this may surprise many pro-choice people. But you can access an abortion in all 50 states. And no, I'm not talking about a back alley abortion or anything like that. And this is how it's done. You can make a telehealth visit with a doctor out of state where it's legal to do an abortion, get a prescription filled out of state, and then have the prescription mailed to you. So abortion is easily accessible in all 50 states. And technically, for the woman in possession of the pills, taking the pills, it's not a crime, because if you look at all the pro-life laws, it only criminalizes it for medical professionals, not for the woman herself. So, in a very real sense, abortion remains legal and accessible in all 50 states. Nobody's telling you that, because they whatever want to push you in a certain direction, or they want to make you think like it's, something else. But that's the reality, is abortion effectively is legal and accessible in all 50 states. It still is. You just may be doing a telehealth visit and having a prescription mailed to you, but you can get an abortion at least up to about the 10th or 11th week with that particular option. So, I mean, that's something to keep in mind. I mean, maybe that's a relief to you, maybe that upsets you, but it's the way it is. I didn't hope I didn't burst your bubble there. Now, I talk a lot about meditation, and meditation fundamentally is about connections. This is what I really believe. And it connects you to yourself because it gives you a self-awareness. You're able to have self-discovery and clarity. And this is so important because the first connection you probably need to have is a connection with yourself. And then when you have a connection with yourself, you can start to branch out. Another area of connection that meditation goes to is spirituality, the ability to connect with God or the divine, the ability to connect with profound values of love, peace, compassion, and kindness, the ability to gain wisdom and enlightenment. That's all part of meditation. Meditation gives you the ability to connect with other people. Like when you do a loving kindness meditation, like we've talked about in another episode, you're sending out love and compassion, kindness to another person. You're at a very metaphysical, spiritual sense, making a connection with them. And in the process of connecting with them, you're healing yourself. You're helping to connect more with yourself. And gratitude's the same thing, because as you start to feel grateful, as you start to come into awareness of your gratitude, you're able to now connect with that other person or your circumstances or what have you. So gratitude and loving kindness in meditation are profound ways that we connect to other people. And meditation can also be good because just like you can discover and have clarity about yourself, during a meditation, you can gain clarity about other people. Maybe you couldn't see their point of view, but when you're meditating, now you can. And it can have profound healing aspects for you and for them, for the relationship. So meditation helps us to connect to others. Meditation, when we talk about love, joy, and peace, because that's what we all want, right? So that every human being on the earth wants those three things: love, joy, and peace. When you have connection, you're able to experience greater love, greater peace, greater happiness and joy. And as you start to experience those three things of love, joy, and peace, it brings you into greater connection. So there's this a circular, centrical aspect to it where they build on each other. Connection builds love, peace, and joy. Love, peace, and joy build connection. And that's profoundly what meditation is about. And there's kind of a paradox with meditation in a sense, because in some respects in meditation, we have to disconnect from the world a lot of times. We need to decompress. But in the process of disconnecting, that we're then able to reconnect. And it's kind of like sometimes we fix our computer by unplugging it and then plugging it back in. It's sort of what I call the daddy pig fix. If you ever watch Peppa Pig, there's an episode where, they go to the dad, the computer's not working. His solution is to unplug it and then plug it back in, and it worked. So it's sort of like the disconnect, reconnect, to connect approach. It's the paradox. So that's what I was talking about. And this is going to be the fundamental key to spiritual awakening. The spiritual awakening is starting to go on right now, and it's going to continue to go on, and it's going to continue as long as we have greater connection going on. And this is going to have to be a point that I think the spiritual awakening is going to start to have to directly discuss, because I haven't really heard too much on this message of connection. So maybe I'm like one of the first people bringing it up. We talk about kind of the ethereal things like, oh, we're going to love more, we're going to be one. And people are kind of like, okay, well, what does that all mean? How does that happen? It's the connection. It's the connection. And that's part of the reason meditation is going to play such an integral role, I think, in the spiritual awakening, because it connects. And that's what it's all going to come down to. Maybe it's like we've always been trying to connect, but we now need to like do it, you know? And I think we're ready now. Everything is coming into place. Everything is coming together for us. We're moving the spiritual energy in that direction. And I think God directly is kind of helping to move it in for us. And it's just, let's do it. Just like Nike, just do it. That's what we're all ready to do. 8 billion people are ready to just do it. And that's what we need to do. We need to connect. So why don't we do a meditation? Let's close our eyes. Breathe in deeply. Breathe in through your nose. Hold and exhale. Breathe in deeply. Exhale through the mouth. Breathe in deeply. And exhale. Now just imagine you're in a beautiful field, beautiful flowers, the trees, blue skies. It's sunny. You can feel the warm sun on your skin. Allow yourself to just connect with nature in this field. This part of connection. When you visualize and see nature, see the flowers. What kind of flowers can you see? See the trees. Allow yourself to be one with the flowers and the trees, fundamentally connected. The green grass. Connect with the warmth of the sun. Take a moment to fill in whatever you want in this nature scene. Maybe you see water flowing. In this moment, feel the connection of your body. Feel your hands and your fingers. You may wiggle them for a minute. Feel your legs and your feet, your toes. Wiggle your toes. Feel your head and your heart. Feel connected to your heart. Put your hand on your heart if you want. Just breathe in and out through your nose. Keep taking a few slight deep breaths and imagine yourself breathing in and out through your heart. You're making a heart connection. Allow yourself to become one with the divine. You are part of God. God is part of you. Just allow yourself to feel the oneness of God. Breathing in God's love and exhaling. You are one with the light, and you are part of the light. Connected to the divine. Now, pick one person and send love, kindness, and compassion to them. Pick that person and say, may you be loved. Say it deep within your being. May you be loved. May you feel kindness. May you be at peace. May you experience compassion and see that person experiencing love, joy, peace, and compassion. Really allow yourself to feel it. Feel love, compassion, kindness for them right now. Now just focus on yourself for a minute. Focus on your own love, compassion, kindness. Say to yourself, the core of my being is love. The core of my being is love. Say it to yourself a few times in your mind. The core of my being is love. Feel love for yourself in this moment. Now say, I am filled with compassion. I am filled with compassion. Say that several times in your mind. I am filled with compassion. Now say, I am kindness. I am kindness. I am at peace. I am at peace. Say that in your mind. I am at peace. Now let's take in one final deep breath. Breathe in through your nose. Hold. And exhale. When you're ready, you may open your eyes. Thank you for joining me.